Welcome to the Friendly Geordies podcast. We've got a very special episode today because we have a special guest, a personal hero of mine. You know, Arj, before we start this, I want to say the amount of people that have come on this podcast and have said that Arj Barker is their favorite comedian of all time. It's insane. There's a lot of people in our generation, and I'm sure many generations, that think that you are G-O-A-T.
Oh, wow. That's awful nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. Thank you. That's a nice way to start.
You wouldn't have expected it? I'll tell you what, man. Like, it's like growing up in that generation, you were doing something else. Everybody else that you saw on television, they had, like, it was a replaceable comedian, I suppose. Like, the jokes might have been good or whatever, but your, like, act and what you were saying was very different to everybody else that was on television. So I think that we're all attracted to it because of that. Anyway,
I think not speaking about myself specifically, but I think the best comedians are the ones that they are so much who they are. You know what I mean? Like Bill Burr's one of my favorites. But when you see Bill, you just like, it's just Bill. You know, like it's and so I think just, it sounds really cliche and obvious, but just being yourself, the most you can be, I think is what is one of the components of great comedy.
Yes.
I don't know. But
yes.
But having said that, I never set out with any plan to be this way or that way. But anyway, it's great. It's nice to hear Ali anyway. Thanks.
No, the lost comic, like Fergus Neal, I don't know if you've met him. He's an Australian comic. He's up and coming. We asked him, we put him on the spot. Who do you think is your favorite comedian of all time? And he said,
"There's so many comedians now, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like I used to think. Did you go through a phase where you thought you could know every comedian, or like you could know about every comedian? Like,
yeah.
Me, I think the first 10 years I thought I know basically who's out there. And, like I was already kidding myself, but now I just like forget about it.
You don't have to. You've paid your dues. You don't have to know every comedian.
I know. I just want to rest in peace. You know. That's my new premise. Why do we only use that for someone that's dead? You know. Why can't I say, I'm going to go take a nap. All right, rest in peace, bro.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's a really nice phrase, isn't it? It does. It just gives you immediate solitude. Yeah, exactly.
It's also a nice feeling, I think. Resting in peace sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
I just want to rest in peace for 20 minutes, you know? Then
Does it have to be
we'll
eternity?
Go to the pub. I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Here's the big question, though. How did you get on TV in the first place?
Well, I got some spots in the States back home through friends that I met that were a little higher up, and they introduced me to a manager, Dave Rath, and he helped get me on some, Comedy Central in the States.
Yep.
They had the few shows where they would have, package shows with 6 or 7 comics per hour. So I did two of those. I can't remember. Comedy Product was one. So that was my first TV, but if you're
nervous?
Yeah, I'm always nervous. I was still nervous about coming on this show. I'm nervous about everything I do.
Is that just your personality?
I kept thinking about this guy's got 1 million followers on, or whatever. You have a shitload of. I thought.
That freaks you out.
I get in the spiral of thinking. No, it's not so much that. It's I worry that I'm not going to sleep well, and that makes me not sleep well, and I get in this spiral. And then I think, I'm going to look like shit because I know everyone's films podcasts. I get that. And then I feel like, the thoughts, it's going to be online forever. You know? And you're going to look like shit for forever.
Forever. Yes.
It's so stupid.
That's it. You're not resting in peace.
And I'm literally like, even when I go to sleep, I'm dreaming about not getting
being ugly on camera.
No, it's so stupid. But anyway, I get nervous I don't get like nervous necessarily right when I don't know. I do. Yeah, I do get nervous. Sometimes it depends.
That's it. I feel like that's a comedian thing to do. Every comedian, for some reason, is a bit nervous. I guess it's similar to where you get your comedy from, but nervousness and being in that state of fear can also lead you to some great jokes.
For sure.
Because he's the same.
I think there's a lot of energy that comes from that energy. And yeah, you take it on stage with you and it comes out. I think sometimes when I do shows that aren't filmed, and especially like we're talking about Tuesday at the Comics Lounge,
where
I'm just messing around, I'm quite relaxed because I know in my head
This does not matter.
Doesn't matter that much. I want to do well. I want to try my jokes up. Excuse me, but I almost sometimes wish I had more of that excited energy, you know, because that is what kind of lifts you up sometimes. But as far as
I thought that you would be much better in your element when you're extremely relaxed. I thought that that's where your gold would come from.
Oh,
But you like being scared.
well, not necessarily scared, but excited. You know, like some stakes. You know,
Yeah,
like,
some stakes. Yeah.
like the more you have stakes. But just to go back and answer your first question, if you were talking about TV in Australia, that sort of fell in my lap because when I came out here first, it was like 2000-ish. Maybe it was 1999.
Did you come in for a holiday or?
So I came here to do some shows at the Sydney Comedy Festival,
Okay.
which is a different one, I think, than the
Yes.
one they have now.
Yeah.
And through a promoter named Mary Tobin, who I still work with.
Mm.
And I think back then there wasn't definitely not as many overseas acts coming out here. And I sort of just was handed some TV spots like, hey, it's Saturday. I think
What?
that was the main one. Pretty much just, yeah.
So just in front of 2 million people like that.
Well, it's crazy because I don't remember like auditioning. I think maybe they came along and watched the show.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like, well, he's come from overseas, so he must be quite successful.
Yes.
And I wasn't. Like, I was definitely not a household name. I'm still not back home. I had done some TV, and I'd been going for a while, and I was a pro, and I had, get had a decent TV set ready to go, but still, it was sort of somewhat handed to me. So that was lucky. And then I did that a couple times, and that was then that gave me a little bit of street cred out here in terms of TV.
Yes.
Then I was starting to do the other joints like Glass House. I can't remember exactly when that came along, but the Good News Week was probably a little later. And
You
Rove,
were in the golden era of Australian comedy television.
Rove was really fun. I used to do
Yes.
that a handful of times
Yes,
because it was
yes.
live. That was exciting because you knew it was live, and if you go out there and whatever happens,
Yeah, now that's stakes.
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Live is exciting.
Okay. Now, go.
No, I just wanted because I'm curious. I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but how did you feel coming to like Australia and you're like, oh, let's just see, maybe I'll sell a few tickets here, do a few shows, and then you end up becoming a household name in this foreign country?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, so I came here a couple times. Well, I came here once. I just had a great time. Like the shows were well attended, but I was playing like, 100 people, 150. The comedy, what was it called? I think it was called the Basement Comedy Club in Sydney.
The one that had the big opera house in the background that was stuck on.
I don't remember that,
No.
but I think it was called Basement.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a long time ago, and I'm not great with exact names and dates, so unfortunately.
So this is anywhere between 1999 and 2009,
Yeah,
somewhere.
something like that.
Yeah,
This is between 20 and 40 years ago, I remember. So I went there, and then I had a blast, but really it was just like, my head wasn't thinking, oh, there's an opportunity here. It was just like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
People are so cool. I'm in another country.
Yeah.
I'm partying. I'm having the best time ever. And I love the temperature outside. I was really enjoying the warm Sydney nights. And, not to be repetitive, but I was just having so much fun like going out and, trying to get into trouble. Let's leave it at that. But it wasn't always as successful as I'd like to say. But it was so fun. I said I couldn't wait to get back here. But it was never about that. And that was my motivation back then was just I loved the adventure of going on the road. So I went to the UK originally. And I loved working
Did you like
overseas.
the UK though?
Yeah, I did. I spent a lot of time there, but I had my ups and downs there. I definitely had some lean times there, some very lonely times, and just touring around, sitting on trains. I feel like I paid my dues in the UK somewhat just because that was tough, when I first went there. And not a sob story, but, you go out there and, it's just a lot of...
It is London. Yeah.
Yeah, the weather,
Yeah,
it's getting dark at 4 p.m.
Yeah. Nightmare Sydney.
But I made friends that I still have to this day. And I love those years I spent on the circuit in the UK. Like, they're very special to me, but there's some ups and downs. but definitely glad I did that. But yeah, coming here was like, whoa, it's so warm and nice.
Yes.
Wait, it's like, and the audiences were definitely, I was definitely connecting with the audiences.
Yes.
So
Okay.
So eventually I went and did Melbourne.
Yeah.
We started the comedy club there.
Mm-hmm.
Still didn't think that much. I'm in a package show. And then Mary said, oh, you should do your own show next year. And then I did that, and like 250-seater. Still didn't click anything about. Oh, I had a couple of people say, oh, I saw your little cartoon on the Comedy Channel, Arj and Poopy.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, that was
That was so weird to me. It just used to pop up at random times, and it was like, how does he have a cartoon?
That's a Sydney animator named Bernard Derman, who, the funny thing is, he emailed me one day and said, hey, mate, I'm an animator, and I like your comedy, and I made this little short. And he sent me, which is still the very first Arj and Poopy. It was called Prostitute, and there's no Poopy yet because we haven't met up yet and created Poopy. But it's just me saying to a prostitute, or who I think's a prostitute. Well, the joke is, when you think you see a prostitute, but then it's not a prostitute, something like that. And I go, hey, how much? And she goes, what? And I say, how much time is it right now? So that was the gag. So he took that audio and made this little thing, and I looked at it and thought, that's like seriously cool. Like, he's a great animator.
It was cool.
So I wrote him back, said, that's awesome, man. And we met. Turned out he was a Disney animator at the time, so working at Disney here in Sydney.
Big shot.
And so we went to his friend's studio, which is quite like this, his friend's house in his bedroom, and started recording what became Arj and Poopy. So we put the cat there so that I would have someone to talk to sort of do my jokes towards, and then Poopy might respond with a burp or something like that. But that's why we created that. We just ripped the song, which a lot of people got stuck in their head, and their kids were singing the song Arj and Poopy.
Still in my head.
And so we made like 5 or 6 of them over a few years.
You made one of the most successful jingles in Australian history. It would have to be up there with Lube Mobile. Sometimes even when you're not, when I know that I'm not interviewing you, which, let's be honest, has been every second of my life until about a week ago.
A fair amount, I would say.
Yeah. Let's say the majority, right?
Yeah.
On the balance, I'll be in the shower and still think about Arj and Poopy.
Oh, really? Well,
just the jingle. Did you come up with that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just sang it. Like, I don't remember if there was even other versions. It was just sort of like Arj and Poopy. It just came out. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't remember that moment.
What? So you just mumbled it and they thought, yeah, that's fine. We'll chuck that out.
12 and 50 years ago. Okay, that's all I remember. But Bernie, and we're still friends, but he lives in LA now. And a little fun fact, I might not have the exact title right, but I think he's the director of animation, or he was. Anyway, if he isn't still, for Bob's Burgers. So he went out there. That's a huge show. Like,
you know what? You can see the similarities between Arj and Poopy and Bob's Burgers.
I haven't watched a ton of it, but I know it's a pretty popular show. And
yes.
He's just done so well. So he was already, like, pretty doing well when I met him, but he is a great animator. That's the whole point of that whole story. It went on too long, but that was fun.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, so I've
always wanted to know the behind the scenes of that.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed because that was the weird thing about watching Comedy Central and then watching Channel 10 was the idea that you were prevalent in the United States, in front of a United States audience, and then you're in front of an Australian audience. And I always wanted to know this, even as a kid. Why do you think you clicked with an Australian audience? You're not the first American to come here.
Yeah.
There has been others, I assume as much. And it's just you and, for whatever reason, like 2 Irish guys. And they were just like adopted. They were adopted by Australia. I don't know why. Like, why do you think you gelled so well here?
I don't know that. I've been asked that before, and I don't have an answer really, except that I like the audiences too. And at the time, I was just doing what I thought was funny, and I still am. That's all we ever do, right? We get on stage, and we try to give our best show, what we think's hilarious or what's funny. And the audiences responded really well. And so it's like a conversation. Like, they answered back, so I came and did another show. They responded, I kept going, and here we are. But I don't think...
So it seems like, okay, when you went to the UK, they just didn't get you like we did. There wasn't that same affinity. And I don't know what it's like in America. What do you think the audience is like there for you?
Well, there's a certain amount of luck, and you know that whole thing, success is when luck and hard work intersect, that whole thing. It's a cliche, but there's some truth there.
Yes.
I worked really hard in the States and in the UK as a comedian, and had great responses from the audiences. Like my stuff worked, and it took a minute, but I got a great set going in the UK, and I had a little success at Edinburgh in '97. Got the newcomer that year, which was back then it was like the Perrier Award was like a huge deal, and then there was the newcomer, which was sort of the secondary award. But so I definitely didn't feel like I was just grinding my wheels. What is it? Grinding my gears?
Grinding my gears? Is that from
gears.
Family Guy?
I wasn't grinding something, but
yeah, you were grinding something. Yeah,
I was
grinding a lot of things.
No, I felt like I was doing okay in the UK, and who knows if I stuck it out there, I might have made more of my career there.
So you feel like they got you.
Definitely.
The audience got you.
And in the States too, when I'm in front of a decent audience, I have a good response. But here, because I was talking about the luck thing, so we had the hard work and the luck, but the luck was that I was in the right time to just get plunked onto like, hey, and slotted into a lot of TV shows. And, you know, there was a little bit of luck in terms of the timing of that. And who knows, you know, maybe there's something about my style that,
I feel like there is, but I can't put my finger on it. That's a really weird thing as well, because we talk about this all the time. I mean, yeah, you've been around here long enough to see tall poppy syndrome in action. It seems like not many people are immune from being hated by the Australian public, except you and Carl Barron, and that's it. Wow. It's just like they seem to hate everyone else.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Don't you feel like Husey just gets like a lot of unwarranted hate all the time? And it's like he's a native here, and then for whatever reason, you as an export, everyone's just like, yeah, he's sick. Bring him back.
Well, I've done so many shows with Husey, and he's quite a good friend. Like, not with him, but at the same festival as him. And I know his numbers are pretty good.
No. Like the audience that goes to him likes him, but it just seems like he's just always marred in controversy. People are constantly attacking him online. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's I don't know. It's just, and I'm just plucking him out because he's what I'm saying is
we're big
he's
fans
not
of Husey,
unique. Oh, we're massive fans of Husey, and we go to his show a lot. And we go to yours as well, but he's just another one of those people that people are just like, yeah, he's doing well. Fuck him.
I do
but
think
you don't get that.
I do think. Well, I do think that's. Well, we could have a chat too about what happened a few weeks ago, because that was my first taste of that for sure.
See, that's what like we were just when we heard that we were just like, man, that guy is not equipped to be a culture warrior.
No, but I have an observation.
No, you thought well, he had a good run. He had a good run.
I had an observation, and you can tell me if this is true or not. But you're an incredibly funny man. But also, incredibly funny things happen to you in many circumstances.
I know, like it was.
I've got
no offense, but we did enjoy it, like
because it was like, and I think you made this point. It was like you were living a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It was just like you getting annoyed by like this noise at your show, and the next thing you know, the Today show has like a headline: Arj humiliates women. You do understand to us it was really funny.
Just sitting there, just being like, I don't know what happened.
That was the most unexpected thing. I mean, at the time, it was pretty. It was definitely an awkward moment in the show, but you know, I've been through awkward moments before. Like earlier in the run, I got my foot caught on the stool doing being goofy, and I completely just ate it. Like at the stool, I was flat on my back. Everything completely exploded on stage. That was embarrassing too, but you know, I thought it was funny, and I went back to work the next night. Same thing with the baby incident. Did the show the next night. I thought, well, that was pretty awkward, and yeah, you know, but I'd already kind of let it go. And the next morning, I make my coffee, and I get this text from my friend Allison, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." Are you okay? But there was a little voice in my head that said, "Oh fuck."
Oh, you knew what that meant?
No, there was an intuitive part of me that thought, I wonder if this has to do with the baby. I wonder if it's all kicked off. And sure enough, because she had already seen that, and I woke up. Look, again, we're talking about. I like to sleep in a little bit, and I had no idea. And then she'd seen that it was ordering like on social media, and she assumed I knew. But that just, are you okay? Those 3 words were just like
He's so scared.
they're so loaded.
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
either that
why
or a
would she ask
cancer.
me that?
Yeah.
You're okay. You're okay. Sometimes when it's a slow news week, they need to make something out of nothing, and it was a bit of that with you as well.
The biggest point I'd want to make that I haven't gotten to make really publicly, and for anyone that hears this, was clear to me was that the media, and I knew this, but I was never so involved in it, but they loved the outrage. They would have seen that story and said, wow, this will really get people up in arms, you know, and so they ran with it without really exploring what really happened.
They
At
didn't
least
care
both
what
sides
really
of it.
happened.
Yeah, so
just
they
wanted
really
TV.
upped the whole like the breastfeeding thing. I didn't even know that was involved till 2 days after when I started same as everyone else. I was like, oh, okay, she was breastfeeding. You know,
You were learning too.
Yeah, you can't see from a bright stage. When you're on stage, you're looking into the dark. But they just, it didn't matter to the...
It's completely understandable.
To the media, they don't care because they just think people are going to like have such a strong opinion now, and they're going to be clicking and commenting for days, and they're exactly right. And it didn't matter really what the actual truth of the story was and the nuances of it, because for them it was just an outrage cycle. It was classic. And I've known that they do that, and I've always thought, like Fox is like blatantly or outrage. They'll say, like in the States they do that, like immigrant attacks woman, because they know this will get everyone fired up. Oh, the immigrants are taking over, that kind of thing.
But what you learned is this is not just an exclusive trick of the Murdoch press. This is everyone. They'll all do it. The
That's
ABC,
true, yeah,
SBS, they'll all
across
just
the
chuck
board.
your name under the bus. Yeah.
It was across the board, and yeah. But anyway, it was pretty unpleasant for a couple days, but we got through it.
Was it unpleasant? Because, I don't know, maybe it's just the circles I roll with, but I thought everybody was saying, I think everyone realized, all right, feels like the outrage bait has been reaching a little too far.
Yeah, a lot of people, there was definitely a wave of support, as there was also a wave of sort of anger and very toxic emails, which, getting back to that thing, I've not really been in that. I've sort of somehow somehow like had a pretty good run.
Just
I had a good run.
shouldn't happen to you.
I had a good run.
Just
But it was
not
my
an
first taste of
offensive
like,
man.
like there were, I never read all of them, but there were hundreds of emails and messages, and there's still tons of comments there of people like that were angry and like telling me off. But what's also incredible is someone's reading that and they've never met me, and yet they say this guy's one incident that they read happened, and they go, this guy's a terrible person. Like,
Yes, shame on you.
The outright judgment is incredible.
There's very few of
Incredible.
those. You don't need to worry about it too much.
But no-
Everyone kind of understood that this is a show.
Because think about it, your name was plastered across the entire continent for days. You were number one story in most of the news websites, that's the word, everywhere. And then you get like a few hundred emails.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It just means that, what, like 25 million people thought, shut up to the Today Show or whatever,
Definitely since then, I've only really had really positive encounters because of it, and also wonderful. There's been like it's almost like, I'm not saying this out of like lack of modesty, but I feel like I've leveled up a little bit as a comedian, because my shows are just, the audience has leveled up. Like they're
ready to go.
They're a little more invested. It might wear off. I call it the baby bump, but since then, like the shows are
Baby bump.
Yeah, you gotta have to come up with funny names, right? What are you gonna do? But yeah, the audience just seems a little more excited to be there. There's just
Of course,
a little more.
yeah. You've got your own Chris Rock slap story now.
You've got, It's so like
You got to do an entire show just focused on that one point, and you will sell a lot of tickets to it. Despite the fact that, let's be honest, it'll be a pretty mediocre show because you can't cover that for an hour. Yeah. But like, it would, like it would. The audience would go to that sure.
I have an opener that addresses it, and it's been pretty easy. Like it's low hanging fruit, but it gets a big laugh.
Yep.
I basically say, if there's any babies here, I just want to say, welcome. Stay as long as you like, and by all means, drink up. So I do that, and look, I might be jinxing it or whatever, but it does really well at the moment. But it might wear off, and then when it does, I'll go back to how I was. But
manufacturing controversy.
And I have a few minutes, on the thing, but it's not about attacking the mom, or it's not really about babies. It's more about the paranoia of wondering who was on my side and who wasn't. So then the skit goes into, like, first my plumber doesn't call me back, so I think, oh God, maybe I think my plumber's team baby, and then it escalates to my doctor and then my dentist, and it's dumb, but it's fun, and it gives the audience a chance to laugh about it. But then we go into the show that I'm touring, and that whole thing was, I've never experienced anything like that. I don't know if you have.
It's probably it's crazy that in this modern, like, attention grabbing social media landscape, that's one way to sell tickets. Like, you have to just do something crazy, because new comics are legitimately trying to get canceled so that they can become comedians. Because that's the only way you can grab attention now. No one's paying attention to my jokes. Probably because they don't suck.
It is the unfortunate thing about social media and just the general decline of society. We were talking about it last podcast, which is talent is no longer rewarded, spectacle is. And you're proof of it now.
I was thinking about this the other day. Are you familiar with that idea that we're wired to respond more to negativity? Because
yes.
Like, we'll notice someone frowning in a crowd because that they represent a threat, potentially. Yeah. That's just how we're wired.
Yeah.
But I think the same thing kind of plays out in terms of media and news. Like, if there was a positive story, let's just say, hypothetically, there was a baby crying, and I said, let me hold it. Let's take the opposite story. Yes. Give me that baby.
Yeah.
And I rocked it gently to sleep and gave it back to the mom.
You're not going to be on the Today Show with the banner, Arj loves babies.
It'd be a little feel-good. It might be a little feel-good story but it wouldn't rage for like 3 or 4 days. I mean, I got a message from Brazil. We're with you down here.
Norway. Would it be amazing that was from Lula?
My friend in Norway. My friends in the UK. It was covered in the States, so that's that whole negative bias.
Covered in the States.
CNN, I think NBC, Hollywood Reporter, and even those guys all kind of threw me under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
From their perspective, it works a lot better if they throw you under the bus.
I mean, they were they told my side, and they said he claims he didn't know she was breastfeeding, but they still, again, I think for them it's about. They stir the outrage a little bit.
They need it to be a debate. So when they're talking to you or they're mentioning you, they want to take the other side so that you sort of like quarrel with them, and that's television. If both of you are agreeing to something, it kind of fizzles out.
Yeah.
No, but having said that, you would imagine that, say, Sky. What did the Murdoch press say about it? Were they just shameful?
I want to be honest.
Sacred.
I read very little. I actually was sort of aware of what was covered and headlines, but I didn't read many of the stories because I would get quite.
Yeah,
that didn't happen. That's not true. Wait a second. That's not fair.
That's the half truth.
I never said that. Even Wikipedia has a quote that I don't think I ever said, that it was derailing my train of thought, because I don't think I said that. Sorry.
They said it. The lady, she said that. But it's maybe he kicked me out because I was derailing his thoughts. So
but it's been attributed as like a quote from me.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. None of this is something that you're at fault for. This is a ridiculous news spectacle. We're kind of in this business, so we know how this works and we don't get fazed by it. None of this is on you. They would have done it even if you were like someone completely different and the story was different.
When you know your act Jordan, as I assume you've been doing a show for a while.
Mhm.
You know your jokes. You're doing a joke you're familiar with. You can withstand a distraction. It might be distracting, but you can still stay on course, get to the punchline. And that's how I am. I know my show. I could have performed. I could have ignored any noises. But the audience, on the other hand, in a very quiet, theatrical environment,
They want you to shut up.
they want to be immersed.
Exactly.
Like at the thing. So, and anyway, I'm not going to try to, like bring it up again because I already put out the statement. But I did it for the audience. So, but anyway, it was pretty weird.
No, it's definitely true. There's always that fine line where hecklers add to a show until they say a few too many comments, and then you can feel the audience going like, I did pay money for this,
Yeah. And, there's comedy is a wide umbrella too, and there's different types of comedy. And I had one of the funniest comments I got was, "Oh, you're a crap comedian. You can't even be funnier than a baby." What? Okay. That made me laugh actually, but
I've got to go look at the headlines. I wonder if you got the whole
I saw one.
comedian Arj Barker.
No, one was legitimately big headline: Arj humiliates women. There is nothing better than that. That's insane.
yeah.
And what's your response to that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd say this. An honest response is that I believe it was embarrassing for her, as it would be for anyone who's asked to leave a show. But it was embarrassing for me too to have to ask her. It was an awkward situation.
Yeah, it always does ruin the vibe, doesn't it?
I would never have condoned any kind of abuse towards her. There was a couple people yelling. In my memory, it was very short-lived, and it was a little chaotic. But I can also understand how for her it may have felt really differently. Time may have slowed down, and she may have taken things as felt like she was being attacked. She definitely wasn't for me. And again, at the time, I wasn't sure that people were yelling at me too. It was very confusing few seconds. But as far as what I did, I would have responded the same. Were it the father holding the baby? Were it a robot holding a raccoon? I would have done the same thing. Unfortunately, if it's a person talking, you say, "Mate, I got to do my show, so I just need you to not do that." Fine. I have sort of a 3-strike policy. Second time, I need to ask you not to interrupt me. Because I really work hard on the show, and I get strictly 60 minutes. I want to do my show. And then on the third one, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, you don't really have that with a baby. You can't explain to the innocent baby, "Please don't make noise." So, there's a lot of computing in my head to come to that, but that's what happened. But yeah, I know you guys don't think that I humiliate women or get off on any power trip.
No, but
I
this
didn't
is
say
what
that.
no one does. This is what you need to like. No one does that. No one believes that.
I know.
Yeah, there's those few hundred people.
If that, like,
Look,
it's just, they're just
once
doing
you
it for
get
the sake of-
cancelled 3 or 4 times, you get it. But I understand the first time that it happens, you sit there and you think exactly the whole thing of like,
Yeah, I
oh
broke
yeah,
my
the plumber
cancel cherry.
hates me. Huh?
I broke my cancel cherry. So.
Yeah.
But there's another very funny incident. This is what I mean, that funny things happen to you. I don't know if you want to like talk about it, but because you've spoken about it on commercial television, I may.
No,
take
I don't
the
mind.
liberty.
Yeah.
We're on Today's show again, and you were asked about how your relationship is with your wife, and and you were like, "Well, we're at that stage of our lives when we're exploring our individuality." And Carl was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "We're getting divorced, Carl. Come check out my show." Again, one of the funniest things ever. Like how you can take something like that's very sad and a depressing phase of your life into like one of the most hilarious clips on TV where they couldn't even stop laughing after you said that. It's like, oh, okay, this went a completely different way.
Carl's a good laugh. Like I do enjoy chatting with him because at least he knows mostly when I'm joking and he laughs, which is kind of rare. For some of those Today shows, they're pretty earnest, and I've had that thing where they go, "Oh," and I say, I want to say it was a joke, but I don't want to say that because it's not nice to say that.
Yeah.
So it can be that disconnect that can be quite awkward. And best, I find, just to lean into it and just hope people at home know you're kidding. But Carl, he laughs. It's like a little mini audience with that guy. So I don't mind going on his joint.
So a bunch of the other talk shows, it's a very robotic, because I've always seen that on television. It feels like most of the hosts, especially when they are interviewing comedians, I don't know. There's a level of fear there of saying something.
It's very conservative, I think.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
On those morning shows.
Okay.
And if you say something racy, they go, ooh. But except for Carl.
Except for Carl.
But he's actually said stuff that's gotten him, a second look,
Do you know what I think the difference is? He's not scared of losing his job, and the rest of them are. I think the rest of them are also capable
or
of
he's figured out that keeps his job.
Well, that's a great realization because, obviously that's going to... If you're comfortable on TV, I'm comfortable watching you, and if you can take a job...
Definitely true.
Laugh,
yeah.
But the others, I think they're just legitimately scared of losing their jobs. As their revenue declines, they're just like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I've got a mortgage to pay.
They definitely don't seem anywhere near as confident as they did, say, when Arj was on Good News Week or The Glass House. You go back and watch
Completely
those shows,
different
and the atmosphere is so different to what television is now.
Well,
Have you noticed that?
I mean, comparing those to the morning shows is very different.
Of course. Yes, that's a bad comparison. You're right.
No, that's okay. But those are, of course, comedy shows. And yeah, probably now. I mean, there aren't that many shows like that now, are they? Where comedians go on.
Have you been paying attention? I think that's it.
Yeah, there's that. And I don't watch a lot of free to air, so I'm not sure. But
no one does. No one does, unfortunately.
If there are, they're not asking me on. But back in the day, those were terrific because you would get subjects and you could write gags, and they were hosted by comedians. It was really fun. Glass House was particularly quite fun because you would get these subjects and then force you to write some jokes.
I will say this, when you go and watch one of those comedy panel shows on the ABC that I don't even know, because again, nobody watches free to air, but you do flick through it. No, that fear is there on the ABC. That absolutely wasn't when you go and watch The Glass House.
Are you saying like a fear of saying the wrong thing? Are you saying the
fear of saying the wrong thing? But there is also just this robotic... There's definitely a fear of the wrong thing, but I also think, as Ali was saying, they're scared of losing their job, and they also seem to be almost scared of the audience as well as... It's fear factor, the show, every single one of those panels now. So I think that it is amazing that you got that period of television. Because as you were saying before, Rove was live, and you could tell that everyone was having a hoot.
Yeah,
It didn't seem like a fearful atmosphere.
It was some good... Definitely was a lucky period. Actually, I've been quite lucky because I also got to enjoy the London club circuit in the 90s, which was pretty legendary. There was like a big comedy boom in the UK, and there was all these clubs, and you would do you could do sometimes up to 5 20-minute spots a night on the weekend, and you're zipping around on the tube, and they all paid cash. So you'd get these little brown envelopes, usually like 60 quid to 100 quid or whatever. What is that? I don't know. It's not that much, but it kind of add up, and by the end of the night, you had a pocket full of little bags of money. And it was just fun. And there was so many clubs, and comedy was so popular. Everyone's trying to go to their neighborhood pub, and they're filled up. And I really got to enjoy that a lot. So I'm really grateful for that.
Why did you get into it?
Comedy?
Yeah.
I just tried it one day because my friend said you should try it. And he was pretty funny, and we were both considered funny in our groups. And then our groups merged, and so we were collaborators, crank calls, that kind of stuff, just making our buddies laugh.
Was there ever a competition between you and him when you were kids? Like,
That's incredible you asked that, because that's when I first met him. We're at the 7-Eleven. That's where, you meet, that's where you hang out back then in California. And we ran into his group, and they went to the Catholic high school, and I went to the public high school. But there's a couple kids that knew both, so that brought us together. And they said, "Oh, this is Doug. He's hilarious." And my boys were like, "No way, Arj is like he's hilarious." And then that's how we met. As I recall, we had like a joke of like a yo mama like joke, like your mom
A
was
rap
so
battle. Yes.
your mom was so fat she sits around the house, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics of it, but we just since that day were friends. It wasn't like angry or hostile. It was sort of stupid and just people just trying to get laughs and have fun. But
Did Doug continue on?
no, he became an entrepreneur and also.
Okay, so now he's like a
video
tech
guy.
billionaire. Yeah, okay.
And,
Now he's Doug Stanhope.
no, he has a couple amazing children and a wonderful partner, and he's doing well. But no, he didn't go into comedy or anything. But he's the one that said you should try stand up. So he made me think about it, and then I did go to the Holy City Zoo, where you pay $2 and you get to go up, and then I loved it from the first one. Did you love it? Were you hooked when you first did a set?
God, I can't remember. The thing is, I went to a performing arts school, so I think we were kind of thrust upon. That must have been it. Well, I would say that the first shows that I would be doing would actually be in front of an audience because you'd be performing all the time and you'd be doing a lot of improvisation. And I think I just felt that I had a natural knack for it.
Cool.
I was better at performing, I think, than the average person in that specific way. And so after that, they forced me into class clowns and raw. The school was just like, go out and do that.
Oh, so
I think because
nice.
I was just a distracting little asshole at school and they just wanted me out.
Oh, that's sort of lucky though.
Yeah, I know, right? So it's the same thing with you though, but you were kind of forced into it almost.
Not forced, but I
Not
was
forced, but go over here.
a little cajoled by my buddy. But I also was tempted, and at the time we were seeing it on TV, and we were both thought it was fun to watch. We were watching Evening at the Improv, which was on, I think, every weeknight, like an hour of stand-ups doing like 7-minute spots. So we're seeing all these guys. Back then, you assume they've all made it and they're all rich. Now I knew that's not the case now. They get like $2,000. Some of them are touring clubs, making a living, but you just think, oh, you're on TV. That's it.
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah, you've done it.
Did you
And-
bomb
accomplished.
on your first performance?
No, I didn't
great.
bomb. I think I did okay. A couple jokes landed flat, but I got some genuine laughs, and that felt so good. However, since we're going into my history, if you don't mind, I think I accidentally did stand up much younger at summer camp with my parents. It was these Christian summer camps we used to go to. Well, I wasn't raised strictly religious, but we would go to these camps, and some of the families were probably more religious, and some were, my parents were like, do whatever you want. We're not trying to tell you what to do. There was some talks about Jesus and this and that, but nothing was ever, I was fishing most of the time trying to catch snakes.
What?
Well, I was just screwing around in the woods. I wasn't like doing Bible study or anything, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
No, like actually catching snakes.
I was just farting around. Oh, yeah. In California, we don't have any deadly snakes, so I'm catching
all
like,
right. Jesus.
he's like,
garter snakes.
Wow, so there's still some like lost in translation moments. You've been here a long time. Yeah,
he's like, as a kid going into the
Of course, we just immediately
Yeah.
envision a brown snake, and then
Yeah.
you just this Steve Irwin like, got you little bastard.
No, these are actually harmless. They tend to poop in your hand when you catch them. That's about the worst that
That's how
happens.
scared they are of you.
Oh my god,
But
that's so
and
good.
fishing for trout in the stream.
Yeah.
Anyway, they would have a skit night at these camps. It was like, call it a talent show if you want. And each family could present something if they wanted to. And when I was probably 8 or 9, I wrote a monologue about the softball game because there'd been an argument with the adults during the softball game. Somebody had skipped out on helping wash dishes, and so there was like, oh, he shouldn't get to play. He skipped kitchen duty or whatever. And I saw this ridiculous argument as a kid, and I wrote a skit about it devolving into violence. And I did the skit as in like a Howard Cosell voice, who's a famous sportscaster in the States, really famous, announcing like, and there's Dorothy there's Dorothy up to bat. Oh, Wally's running in from the outfield. What's he doing? He's hit her with the bat. Kneecap down on the line. I don't remember what it was, but it was like I was naming people in the camp and like making this ridiculous scenario. I was getting laughs. And when I thought about it years later,
that's a good premise.
Well, years later, I thought that was stand-up, but I never thought of it as stand-up. But it was like
What were you
just me
thinking?
talking into a microphone, getting laughs.
But you thought, like, your intention was to get laughs, right? You weren't just like, no, this is a drama.
I thought of it as a skit, but it just happened. But it was just me. It was basically a monologue. But anyway, technically, I would say that was my first stand-up gig.
Yes.
That would have
Summer
been
camp
loved by
sounds about the
everyone.
first gig. Yeah.
That would have been loved by all the parents, including your parents, I'm guessing.
It got laughs, and I think but people were a little surprised too. And I think some people may have been embarrassed, but I can't remember. But I feel like I got real laughs then too. But it was always like a drug getting a good laugh, which I think I imagine you can understand. You would agree with that?
He doesn't know anything. He's never gotten a laugh.
Yeah. My drug is trying to eliminate dead space.
Okay. Well, whatever, yeah.
No, I think that's actually what I'm addicted to. I like it when you can get a show that goes for an hour and there's no bad points in it.
Sure.
So I'm looking at it the exact opposite way. But I understand that most people go there for the laugh. But I'm sitting there just being like, yeah, okay, that one needs a tweak. I feel like I'm a tradie on stage.
So you don't like parts of your show that aren't funny or don't have a laugh, that kind of thing?
Well, I think that's what I'm focusing on the entire time that I'm on stage is this is getting
that.
a weak response. That's it. I'm not focusing on the laugh at all.
I get
I'm
so
just
ticked off if something's not working, and I'll say, you're gone. You're out of there.
Yeah.
I'll throw it out. I'll say,
Hang on, what's your process for writing a show?
and eventually I say, why do I keep fucking saying that? It never gets a laugh. And I just strip it out, and I've never been happier than when I get rid of something that's not working.
Oh, yeah. That is a nice feeling, isn't it? Giving up on it instead of, no, I can just do this. And
Well, if it's not working, it's not working. But I agree, because I don't want some part of my show that's draggy or some where you're just like, oh, I hate this part. This part goes on for so long. Then that's
when your eyes are rolling when you're about to say it into the mic, here we go.
That's a red flag, isn't it?
Yes, totally.
So I agree.
What do you do when you're writing a show? How do you think of jokes? Because this is the other thing that I remember going to you when I was like maybe 14. And I remember watching your show, and it was like, I don't know, the Beatles with their little hippie yellow submarine animations or something. It was like, this is really trippy. It wasn't like other stand-up.
Huh.
I'm telling you, because I went to Melbourne Comedy Festival, again, because I was part of like that high school stand-up thing. So we were just going out and watching a bunch of them. Everybody else was following a formula. I don't think you were. I could be wrong. But going to your show was very different to everybody else's. And there would be a lot of... The thing that I really like about comedy to this day is when you hear a joke and you don't know why you're laughing. You know, when there's most jokes you hear it and you're like, yeah, I get the technique behind that. But when something just sneaks up and you... Why the fuck am I laughing? Your show had a lot of that.
That's a high compliment, because a lot of the comedy is formulaic, and
it's boring.
No, and I definitely have some formulaic stuff over the years for sure. But
well, you have to, right? But there's something about your show that didn't follow any structure, and there was a lot of, I wouldn't even say callback. It's just like, how did we get here? That was amazing. But go on, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. The way I put a show together is just little bits, trying to write enough little bits that group together. So, for instance, I wrote one joke about, it's one of my favorite jokes right now, but I've been telling it for a little while now, so I still like saying it. It's my great-great-grandfather's birthday today. He did pass a while back, but it's always a reflective day. You know, he would have been 247 today. So, and then there's a couple tags. So then I had that joke, which I was enjoying. Then I have a joke about my mom. My 75-year-old mom is a target for internet scams. So I spent some time with her when I visited her and taught her how to use the dark web. And it's about how she can, have people killed, if they steal her credit card. So it's dumb, but now those jokes are going to go together, because it's about like old family member, mom old. Now I'm working on a new joke about my dad playing chess. And this joke's it's not brand new. I don't know if it works, but it goes something like, it's true. Absolutely true. He's 90. That's true. He kills me at chess. Like 14 out of 15 games he wins. And it's also true that I'm very competitive. And that's That's all true. But this is where the joke is. So I'm so competitive. I'm the most competitive person I know, but with my dad, it doesn't bother me. I don't know. I guess it's probably just because he's my dad. And I guess I'm just glad that at the age of 90, he still knows how to cheat. So that's sort of a new one. So that could group in with the mom. So, it's like that. So now for me, that's how. And then eventually I'll run out of something in that group. And then I'll have to tie it into another group of bits that might go together, or might not. Or maybe there's one longer bit. So it's just all like these little bits and pieces all go into an hour-long show and try to find the best order. I don't know if you've heard of the I think it's BCA. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I think there's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
But this show, for instance, I didn't ever do the BCA treatment on it. I just but I did think, I want to end with something strong. So I ended with the stuff about AI, getting an Academy Award. And I like callbacks. But those I usually think of callbacks after the show's being put
complete.
Together.
Yeah. You start seeing how it ties in. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't I bring that back here?
Yes.
And there's a really fun callback in the show now. I'll tell you guys if you want to hear it. It's a really fun callback.
Do you want to ruin your show? You can if you want.
Am I ruining it? I don't know.
You definitely are.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to hear it, but
Okay.
Well,
there's still going to be a lot of jokes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Maybe someone listening will say, "Oh, this sounds pretty funny. I want to see the other jokes." Like,
Yeah.
give
Yeah,
people
for
a little.
sure. We'd love to hear it.
Well, some guys don't know what. Well, when people say, "Oh, people come from all over such and such to go to XYZ," so in the joke, it's a pizza place, and they say the first joke early in the show, it's a joke about people come all the way from Melbourne to eat here, and it's a pizza place. It's 2 hours outside of Melbourne, and they come all the way from Melbourne to eat here. And then the punchline of that joke is, I believe they came from Melbourne to eat here, but that's not why they came from Melbourne. They were just probably trying to find their uncle's funeral, and they're like, "I really need to eat. Or I'm gonna kill somebody. All right, that place is open." So that's the first joke, and it does okay. I'm not selling it much right now, but then like 45, and I love the really long callback to where it's the last thing anyone's thinking about. I think because it's still in the memory bank, but they don't know it. I'll say to someone, Can I ask you a question, sir? Have you ever taken a shit at the Melbourne airport? And they say yes or no. I say, well, you should, because I think it's going to be incredible. Because from what I understand, people come from all over the world to take a shit at the
That's
Melbourne.
amazing.
It's such a fun.
That is amazing.
What I like about that is that they've completely forgotten.
Yes.
Forgotten that joke, but it's right there as soon
Yes.
as you say it. It goes right back. But that's just one part. Yeah, I don't think people will not come to the show now. They'll go, I already know that part. But that's like only going to be 1 minute total out of the show.
Exactly, yeah. I'll tell you this as well. Now that I'm thinking about it, something did cross my mind. This was ages ago when I was trying to figure out what comedians are doing. And I think I came to the conclusion that why you stand out and are doing something different from everybody else when you're talking about your jokes and what the punchline is, it's sort of like you're parodying a crazy person. It feels like a lot of comedy these days, obviously, is always just going to be observational, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yours feels like it's going down the line of being observational, and then it's just like, my granddad's like 250 years old. It's like, you could imagine someone in an insane asylum thinking that.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's probably why you stand out. Is that what you're trying to do with your jokes there? Is just...
I'm not, I'm only just trying to think of stuff that I think is funny. I don't have
You don't have like a character or anything that you...
Yeah, I don't think in terms of what would my character think. I just think, what do I think? What's funny? I don't
I think
have
you just called Arj insane. That's what you thought it was a character where you're just saying, I'm just saying what I'm thinking.
No, I'm genuinely upset that my grandmother...
No, I don't even know who my great grandfather is. It was just that joke's just based on that people say no, he would have been such and such.
Yeah.
When
You
they're
are
remembering
defeating
someone.
expectation. That's definitely true. But it's like I don't know. I think maybe it's just like I don't know what it is, but I think maybe the Australian public. It's just something that really does gel, I think, with your persona, but also the way, just your style of humor.
Yeah.
It just hits here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful. Was a wonderful treat for me to be able to, have a following like I've had here. I never took it for granted. In fact, I doubled down when I first saw that because I never quite finished that story. And sometimes I ramble too much. I apologize. But when I started to actually see, wow, I'm actually selling pretty good tickets, was when we moved to the Capitol Theater in Melbourne. And I said to Mary, what? That's like 600 seats. She said, yeah, Arj, I think you can do that.
Wow.
And then, that was from a 200 to the Capitol, which is a big jump. But she knew what she was doing, and it sold really well. And that's when I said, wow, this is like ridiculous. I've never thought I could be a comedian that could fill up a theater. Or I hadn't experienced that before. And then I thought, man, I'm not going to let this ripen on ripen on the vine? Even on, I'm not, my sayings aren't too good today, but you know what I'm saying though.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to hammer this thing. I'm not going to let this one, again, here I go again, bird in the hand.
Yes.
And that's when I did somewhat start neglecting the UK and the work I'd put in there because I thought, well, this is awesome. I have so much fun out here.
Yeah, fuck them.
You go where the steam goes.
So I'd someday plan to go back around and hit up all those markets more often than I do. But right now I'm so in love with my dogs, and one of my dogs is older, so I don't even like going too far away from them. They live in Melbourne, so that's been extra time there, and I love it. And I'm very happy. And I know this is super fun. I feel like the time's flying. I just want to take a quick time out.
All right. Well, sorry. Off air, we were just saying. It's amazing. I do feel like we have one of the foremost ufologist experts in the country here. I swear to God you are. You know, the first time I ever started believing in UFOs, I remember you talking about it on a podcast, and you were so earnest about it that I thought, maybe there's not. Maybe there is something to it, huh?
When you hear someone who you think, for whatever reason, you're like, wow, that person takes UFOs seriously, then you start to think, oh, maybe it's not nuts or something, and I'm not, I don't know if I represent that for you, but for me, it's the same thing. It's like, wow, there's some people, it's not just, like, I only knew my friend I played poker with is like, yeah, there's some cool stuff online. I was like, come on, dude. But then I looked into it and I was like, there people take this seriously? And you just look into it and it's fascinating. And there's a ton of cases, and I'm not an expert or ufologist. I'm just like a lot of people, I'm interested in the subject. But I do think that there's too many witnesses, there's too many events, there's too many weird things for it all to be weather phenomenon or potentially disinformation. I think there is that stuff, but I think some of the cases are genuinely mysterious.
Well, the disinformation campaign is proven beyond a doubt. I remember reading about the history of UFOs, and in the 80s, the CIA started infiltrating UFO groups to deliberately feed false information and then turn around and go like, look at what these nutters think. And that might be one of the biggest pieces of evidence to me that there is something there, because they're not going to do that to Bigfoot groups. They're not going to do that to people that believe in tarot cards. They're doing it to UFOs. And so then the question always becomes, well, they're hiding top secret government, super jets and things. But it's just like, yeah, but there's no sonic booms. And I remember, have you heard about the Aurora jet?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah. That's supposed to go at like 6,000 kilometers an hour. And they're clocking things in the sky going at 60,000, and then it's only because radar craps out after 60,000 and they don't know how fast it goes. And they estimate that it's going at like 450,000 kilometers an hour. It seems a bit faster than what is maybe. Think about this, right? Like, believing in the Aurora jet is a conspiracy theory. And that's 6,000 kilometers an hour. Like, we don't even know if they are working on that or not.
Is that the triangular one? That they
Yeah. It's like a reconnaissance plane. So it has that bomber kind of look to it.
There's a plane,
theoretically.
There's a theoretical airplane that they often mention could be responsible for some of the triangular sightings. I feel like it's called a TRS-5 or something.
Yeah.
But it might be similar. But the problem with UFOs, and I don't know if you found this, but the deeper you go, the more you feel like the less you know. It almost feels like you know less the more you look into it.
It is amazing. It's the only subject I've ever been into where you keep getting less and less educated, and it's just more and more mystery. It's like the tantalizing effect of what you do get when you are learning about a subject of, but I want to know more, but there's never any payoff.
Yeah, there's never certainty in that subject.
And why do you think that is? What's your explanation for the fact that you have all these top-ranking experts, top-ranking military officials, you have a bunch of pilots. I know this is a tried and true cliche of it, but it really doesn't seem like pilots are people that just, lie about things willy-nilly, especially when they're reporting it to the military and can lose their job over it. You have that, and then on the other hand, you just have a bunch of blurry photos.
One of my favorite cases is the Japan Airlines over Alaska.
Yes.
I mean, this guy is a senior Japan Airlines pilot, and he knew that he was risking it all. And I think he did get suspended after that.
I think he got busted down to a desk job permanently.
Yeah. Oh, maybe. But there's no way that guy just came out and made that
so
up.
what's this story? What happened with this one? It's a Japanese.
It was a cargo flight. It was a 747, I believe. I think they were flying wine, a big shipment of wine to Alaska or from Alaska. Probably
yeah, I think
to
it was
Alaska.
two. Yeah, two. Yeah.
That makes more sense. That Alaskan
they use
Shiraz.
hydro plants with something different there, yeah.
That Alaskan Shiraz, there's nothing like it. I think they were flying maybe to Anchorage or over Anchorage, and this big bloody kind of walnut-shaped craft was basically just doing donuts around this plane for a while. And it was in front, and then it was behind. And, he described it as sort of almost an oval shape with a sort of rim around the middle of it, like a walnut, not like a walnut in the shell, kind of. I don't know. It was massive, and he's got a good look at it. And this guy went on the record, and he drew pictures of what it did. And there was also corroborating ground radar. Apparently, that's covered in I think it's covered in James Fox's documentary, I Know What I Saw. Anyway, it's an incredible case.
You know that lasted for half an hour? It was half an hour, and they're talking to ground control the whole time, saying, like, it's really big. It's following us. Are you sure there's nothing in the sky? For half an hour. And then, here's the other thing that's really telling about it. Afterwards, Men in Black CIA agents come in and say, give me the radar, give me the documents, and give me the radio transmission between it. That guy filmed it, so we have the footage of it. But otherwise, it would have just been confiscated by the CIA.
So this is not controversial anymore. I think about 3 years ago, if I'm not getting the dates right, that was the first time that the Pentagon and the government acknowledged that these sightings are legitimate. Like, we are aware of them, and some of them are, like, the people that have reported them are not lying. They have corroborated it, but we just don't know what it is. We don't have any answers for you. That's the official version. So saying that you've seen something of that sort is not nutty anymore, because the government agrees that they exist. We've seen them as well, but we don't know what it is.
But that's a huge shift from what it has been over the last 80 years, which is, say with that Japanese case, they said, oh, you just saw Saturn or Venus.
What?
It just explained away like that. And then the other one was, the debunkers were saying that was debris, like air junk, that was just divvying around a plane like this for half an hour. That was the official response for like 80 years. Anytime you ever saw anything, it was some planet in the sky, some cloud. That was every single time. So the fact that the government now is coming out and saying, yeah, well, it's definitely not that. Clouds don't, run up to a plane and then stop about 8 meters before it and then go under the plane and then go back out and then at speeds of 20,000 kilometers an hour,
Well, that's why I think that there is something bizarre that people have seen. I think a lot of these cases, they're being completely honest, and I don't think they're misidentifying Venus. I think they're seeing something, but I can't go as far as to say what it is or even suggest that it's
really, you can't.
No,
you won't.
Well, I wouldn't have a clue, because is it a nuts and bolts machine that's come from another galaxy? I guess maybe. Or
what do you think they're doing? Like, if let's assume for a second that it is some extraterrestrial thing. We don't know what it is. Maybe it's a nuts and bolts thing. Maybe it's just that's just how an alien looks, and we're like, oh my god, that's a machine. What is their purpose? Like, what are they observing us, and why are they making their presence felt?
Well, one of the interesting ways to look at that question is to ask yourself what an organism or a civilization 1 million or 5 million years in advance of us, what would they think about? And the comparison people say is, do ants think about humans when they walk by? You walk over an ant, do the ants contemplate, go, what's that guy up to? If something's that advanced, it's beyond even our abilities to even comprehend what their thoughts or meaning of their actions is.
But they're interested because they come here. There's something that interests them.
Well, I in order for me to have to be honest in this conversation, I have to tell you guys that these days I spend a lot of time, and it's part of my new show, it's not all about this, but it's partly about this consciousness, which I think is probably the everything, in that a lot of people assume that matter is primary and then consciousness emerges out of matter. The Big Bang, stars, planets, life, evolution, consciousness. But I think consciousness is the original thing, and everything comes out of that. And I based that on, reading about Buddhism and stuff like that, but also science. Donald Hoffman, have you come across his work yet? You got to check him out. He's the best. We don't have to do a whole nother hour to talk about Donald Hoffman's theories, but basically, he uses math and evolutionary game theory to suggest that we don't see 1 ounce of reality. That everything we experience in terms of what we call space-time, it's basically like a headset. It's a construct that helps us navigate reality. And I'm stealing all this straight off what Donald talks about. But I don't
even think that's a controversial point, is it? Isn't that just like that? Like, psychologists will say that.
Well, to a degree, but psychologists mostly posit that there is an objective reality. But
But
he's saying that we create everything. For instance, he will happily look you straight in the face and tell you the moon isn't there when you don't look at it, because you create the moon when you look at it. But just to get the real nice analogy he uses is that we use an operating system on a computer. We move a file around, but it's not the file. It's just an image. It's an icon. And what it represents is all this data and circuits firing within the computer. But if you had to go and toggle each bolt, each switch, you would never get your email.
There's no document there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we need to simplify things with the operating system and the click on the little picture of the book and open up the document. But that's all reality is. Everything's an icon, but it's not even.
Wait, so like the ground?
Everything. Even the brain is an icon. So the brain that most scientists assume creates consciousness creates the brain, and the brain is also an icon for something that. Okay, I don't know. That's as far as I got in this book, but
this seems like
he's read the first chapter.
It's good. This seems like an advanced theory of a tree falling.
I'm not equipped for this. Huh? I said I'm not equipped to continue this discussion.
No, I was it. We were talking to my lawyer. We were right in there with you.
No, but it's true. I what I've read and he's online. You can watch a lot of his stuff. I suggest you have a look though, because then you can also revisit things like UFOs, and you think, well, if consciousness is everything, and another group of entities, meaning another civilization, might be far behind us in the study of consciousness, and therefore they may have ways of hacking consciousness and this whole thing. That's not to say there's not some physical evidence, but because everything physical is still a product of consciousness, it really leaves everything wide open, all the possibilities.
You know what? It does play into. Have you heard this? I can't remember who was saying this, Ali, but there was people have been doing brain scans on people that see UFOs, and there seems to be a abnormal
Tumors?
majority tumors. Yeah.
Sorry, just
Yeah, well, you know what? Kind of. Not really tumors, but the part of the brain that perceives things is abnormally large in them. And that seems to do two things that they've noticed so far, apart from the fact that obviously you can perceive more things, right? But it seems to be that people that perceive more things get married to people who can perceive more things. Wow. And also it seems to really help with seeing UFOs in the sky.
That's fast.
Isn't that interesting?
I never heard that.
Now, have you also heard this? You know who John Podesta is?
Yeah, sure. He was
Big shot in the Clinton and Obama administration.
Secretary of State, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that guy's obsessed with UFOs. And during the Assange WikiLeaks period with Hillary Clinton, a bunch of his emails were released. And he's been talking to people in the Air Force, I think. And they were going back and forward and saying that UFOs seem to be linked to people's state of mind. That's as far as it goes. But, you know, high up, non-crazy people in presidential administrations, including Clinton and Obama, think this shit. They think what Arj is saying now. So, you know, you can call Arj crazy, and I think I inadvertently did before,
Yeah.
but it also, but like,
Come to my show. It's so crazy.
but like, you know, it is also like a lot of people high up in the American administration that seem to spend their entire life, like decades in the Senate, just being like, I think they've fucking got something. It seems to be what's motivating them there. And the point that he's saying that it seems to be something to link with consciousness, I'll give it this. There seems to be legs to it.
Well, one thing I like to point out in my show is that literally everything is a product of consciousness, even insofar as there's nothing that you know about or perceive or can ever possibly know about that isn't in your field of consciousness. That's where I got the name of my show, The Mind Field. As I said, everything is the mind field, because what isn't? Tell me something that's not in the mind field. There's nothing. Anything you say, that's part of your conscious experience. So I'm approaching it from that's a really simplistic way to look at it, how consciousness envelops everything. But yeah, these UFOs, they're part of our consciousness. Whatever they are, they're in our consciousness, and because consciousness it plays a big role. I mean, that's undeniable. And I'm not. Yeah, we've already established I'm nuts, but we also know that quantum experiments, they bear that out. You know the wave slit, the famous one, right? The wave slit experiment, where they put the light through two holes, and it acts like particles. I might have this backwards, but if you record it or you watch it, it behaves differently.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember
Yes,
that.
yes.
This is like, I mean,
Yes.
super famous and like super
Yes.
proven. So
And done with atoms as well.
yeah, absolutely. Consciousness is like it's the key to everything. And one of my favorite ufologists is Jacques Vallée, and we were talking about that a little bit off air, but his book Passport to Magone, have you read that?
No.
I really want to recommend you read that because it's such a refreshing, interesting look at the UFO phenomenon. But basically, he's suggesting that he's not saying he knows what it is, but he said, forget about aliens from another planet. This entity that's causing these sightings, could it be the same one that was also causing people to see fairies and goblins back in 300 or 400 years ago? Did you know in the 1800s there was an airship flap? Wooden ships were being seen flying around in the sky.
Mm.
Did you know about that?
Yeah.
That's
and in Roman
crazy.
times, shields.
Shields. So, yeah, is it sort of manifesting as what people would expect to see? So we have people fascinated by space travel in the 50s. I don't know how early, maybe from the 30s, 40s. And we suddenly see saucers. But back then,
Yes.
we're obsessed with traveling by boats to other countries.
Yeah.
We see a weird, and the weird
And
characters,
angels.
the high strangeness. was there as well. So he's saying, I think this thing's been here the whole time, whatever it is, and it's messing with us big time.
Now, that's an interesting thought, because the whole time you sit there, like, this is something that debunkers always use, which is that this is our imagination playing with us because of modern... They're saying exactly the same thing as Valet is, but reversing the logic of it to say that's why it doesn't exist, because people used to see fairies and goblins in the past, and now they're seeing aliens because we got obsessed with space travel in the 50s. But he's saying, no, that's the entity doing that.
And interestingly, the fairies had these circular mounds that were discs, somewhat similar to a disc. And people that went in them, they were disc shaped. They were like a dirt UFO. And people who went in there were said to lose time. They'd go in there and it'd be there for an hour and they'd come back.
Interesting. Did you know about that, Ali?
No,
a lot of the time when you're around UFOs, apparently you get like this distorted sense of time, and you get weird confusion that happens.
Yeah, I've heard, even if you like look at old stories of, you know, they always talk about experiencing some kind of phenomenon. Even like, you know, the Moses talking to the bush, there's always a difference in how they perceived reality while they were experiencing that versus how they were in like normal day-to-day life. It's a common theme. And you know, Kant was probably one of the first people to talk about what you were saying, that how our perception of reality changes reality itself. Yeah. So after the Renaissance, philosophers kind of felt that they used to be mathematicians back in the day, but then like after the scientific revolution, they're like, well, we've kind of figured out everything. Everything is objective reality. If you want to understand the sun, look at the sun. It's giving you this heat. It's doing all of this stuff. You don't need to look at like metaphysical things, just scientifically evaluate. And Kant was like, no.
Measure.
It's all just like what you think of the sun is based on just your perception. So he talked about like this coffee cup that's on the table. I'm looking at that coffee cup. You're looking at that coffee cup, but my angle is completely different and your angle is completely different. So what is objective reality is once again went up in the air. And now we've got like, you know, we're trying to still understand what reality is. I don't know if what you guys are saying is true. I genuinely don't know. But it is a valid way of looking at things.
Yes.
Is there an objective reality that exists outside of the conscious field? And because if so, and I might be wrong, but how could we ever prove it?
When we get into these conversations, all I ever think every time is like, yeah, but what about like climate change or deforestation or something?
Well, so
like, how does that slot into that?
Yuval Harari, you know the guy who wrote *Sapiens*? He says that the only objective truth in the world is suffering. So he's saying if something suffers, you know that to be true. It's a very Buddhist way of looking at things. But so he's like, if Germany attacks France, we say, oh, France is like, you know, this is going through stuff. Like France is nothing. It's a figment of imagination. It's an artificial thing that we've created. But what we know is that people within France, like humans, are suffering as a consequence. So he's saying that's the only form of objective reality.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean,
bad way of looking at it.
I definitely think that within consciousness, we can certainly feel pain or pleasure or suffer. And
like what I'm saying is, it does make a lot of sense what they're saying, but then how do you explain real world impacts? As in, World War II did happen. Like those people are dead.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I'm always, when it comes to this, it's almost as if it's like, what's another way of looking at it? Someone explained it to me like this once, that you can see, snakes can see infrared. We can't see infrared, but that doesn't mean that infrared doesn't exist.
Pigeons can see more colors than we can, apparently.
Yes. So maybe it's a thing of like there's different layers of reality.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about. I don't know.
It's mind-boggling. It's just like maybe our reality, what we're looking at, is also reality, but it's just one layer, and there's multiple layers, and we're only equipped to just handle that one. Maybe a snake or, you know, whatever that sees different colors, or a pigeon is looking at the same reality, but a different variation of it. But like no one can obviously look at the holistic picture
Yeah.
unless you're on acid. Then you can see the whole picture.
Yeah, I don't think anyone. It's need to know.
Yeah,
I don't think
You know what else is really interesting? Apparently,
Classified
people that like,
information.
and we're talking about like generals and Air Force commanders. Apparently, a lot of the time when they have experience with UFOs, the big change in them every time is they start meditating more. Isn't that weird that they start getting more hippie?
Well, yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I meditate, and the reason why I do is because for me, it's that I'm trying to study my own consciousness because I decided that no matter what happens in my life, I'm only going to experience it in my consciousness. So that's why for me that makes sense because it's the only thing I have to interact with the world. So I'm curious about it and I'm trying to explore it a little bit. That's why I do it. But the side effects is it helps keep me a little calm and less insane than I would be otherwise.
Is that what happened though? Have you felt that?
What?
Do you feel like your perception of reality has opened up a little?
I feel more calm in general. I'm able to
that should happen.
I'm
with
able to let
meditation,
things go a little easier if things upset me or my worries. Because what happens is you're able to watch your mind a little bit how it works. So you might, rather than getting an anxious thought and getting carried away, you might think, wow, I'm seeing that thought come in there. And yes, that is a concern. But I'm not going to let that like take over. And you can kind of observe it. So it's almost, there's that part
It's
of you.
hard to do, right?
I think you can practice and get better at it. But it's like that idea of observing your own thoughts. It's weird. There's like two people in you. There's like the one that just thinks incessantly, I have to do this, I have to do that. Oh, I hope I have a good day. Oh, I need to get a coffee. Oh, what am I going to do later? Why haven't I heard from that girl? Whatever. You know, there's that side of you, but then there's that party that can look at you and go, look at you. You're running around like crazy. You know, and then you can almost let some stuff go a little bit and have a little more space inside your consciousness, which is why I think meditation is nice.
How long have you been doing it?
I just started last week.
On that
That's
note,
always the classic.
on
That's
that
always the
note,
classic setup.
we're running out of time, and I think Arj, you have to go in a bit. Thank you so much for coming.
No,
on
absolutely.
This
Yeah, it
podcast.
was super fun. I'm sorry that some of my ideas I haven't thought them through well enough to even finish the discussion. Like I taper off, but I just love this stuff, you know, and I'm more into like learning about it than trying to explain it. And I love UFOs too. I just want to definitely get that idea out there that could it all just be just part of this wild thing, consciousness.
We'll find out. Hopefully within our lifetime.
We're all gonna find out.
Oh, once we're dead.
Oh yeah.
Well, what if it's like nothing? We never found out. We're just
It's black and that's it.
eternity
No,
of
no.
like.
No, you guys, I know you have to go, but seriously, when you die, a lot of people that, you know, got brought back to life, you know about that, near-death experiences and all that. They said when you're there, not all of them, but a shitload of them, they get the download.
Yeah.
Everything. They know how everything works.
Okay.
So you could find out all about UFOs. You would know all the answers to everything. It's just that on this plane of existence, I don't think I don't know why they never get to bring it all back.
But that doesn't happen to everyone. And like, okay,
Not everyone.
This is a bit serious, but like my father had one of those experiences,
that's
right?
so
He was
cool.
gone for 10 minutes.
I'm glad he
essentially.
did
He's
well.
black. It was like, you know, it was crazy. But like once he got better and everything, he had a cardiac arrest. Once he got better and he recovered, I was like, Dad, come on. What the fuck happened? And he said nothing.
Yeah, but don't you think if anyone is going to think nothing is going to be a dirty commie like your dad, like as materialist as you can get,
My dad, look,
like spending his life trying to eradicate God.
he did that in
Well, a
his,
lot
like,
of
you know,
atheists
youth.
have had these experiences, you know,
Yeah.
and you can see those online. But only about I think between 15 and 25% of people, I think more like 15% report a memory. So it's definitely more likely to not have a memory than to have that. But
He did say something about like there being a lot of lights, but then because he was in the paramedics ambulance, there was a lot of lights. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if it was the same thing.
Yes.
a lot of people don't remember dreams. In fact, we don't remember a majority of our dreams. So this thing, there's a lot. That's definitely considered that not everyone has the experience, but those who do, it's very compelling.
Yeah, it is.
What they have to say.
We did an upload about it. You can check that out. It would be nice if you subscribe to that. But yes, thank you. And before we go, Arj, I just got to ask, Roswell, did it happen? Well, according to you, nothing happened. But let's just go to our plane of reality.
Roswell's one of those ones where the more you look into it, the more you have to almost throw your hands up. Say, I don't know. There's some weird stuff. Where did that material go? That strange material, that's like foil, but it reshapes. The Deathbed Confessions. And it's been a while since I looked into it, but I've read a couple books on it. And the confusing admissions about the balloons from Japan that they were releasing, the high altitude balloons. It's anyone's guess, but there was definitely a cover up of some kind. No doubt about that. The bodies, I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, I've read about it and I've seen both sides. I've heard different theories. Do you have a feeling about it?
Yeah. No, I am completely on board with the idea now that the Soviets and the US have retrieved craft and they have little grey men sitting around in goo that they're just studying and just being like, they've got a big head, I guess. And that's what I think is happening.
Yeah, okay, well.
Seriously, do you think that? Because it does make a lot of sense to me. I could go into like a lot of the reasoning for it. I have on this podcast before. But I will say that the thing that really hit me about that was the first thing of the fact that two major pieces of evidence I think are pretty damn solid. The first one just being for 80 years they said, no, we don't have like a crash retrieval project. There was just rumors of it. And then people pieced together through Freedom of Information that they do have a crash retrieval thing. And then they were saying that was just for Soviet material. And then it says, but then why does it say retrieval of flying saucers? And they're just like, well, we never retrieved any of them. And they're like, well, what are all these mysterious objects that we have like little bits of things before it goes classified? And then they say, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. Like we don't have the trail. Like, really? You don't have highly classified documents? You burned highly classified documents. That's the first part. But then the second one is you look at how they think that these craft are moving, and they always say it's moving from anti-gravity. And the fact that the Lockheed Martin in the 50s, after it just being this weird science fiction thing, hired all of these top physicists to look into anti-gravity and funded it. Just gave them obscene amounts of money to just be like, start looking into anti-gravity out of nowhere. Yeah. Lockheed Martin, a fucking aerospace defense contractor, started doing that weirdly just a few years after Roswell. And then you go to the USSR, again, does it exist? Does it happen? USSR collapses. They retrieve documents. They did have a UFO research lab. They were looking into UFOs seriously. And what was the UFO research lab looking into the entire time? How do we obtain anti-gravity? That's what they were focused on right until 1991. And those two points together, and the fact that it is Lockheed Martin, you have over and over again all of these witnesses saying they took it out of public hands so there wasn't a paper trail and gave it to private aerospace companies. And Lockheed Martin is always the name that comes there. The shoe fits.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I think anyway.
Yeah. And the way they move does smack of overcoming gravity.
It's pretty amazing how they move. Like, that is truly the nuclear option. Just insane. Well, look, you have to go in a bit. Thank you so much.
Well,
for
we can do a
coming
part
on the show.
2. I'll read up more on you. I'll get more refreshed on UFOs for next time.
We'd love to. We'd love to. Of course,
fun.
We'd love to have this. Arj is performing all over Australia. If you want to see, there's a link in the description box with his website. You can see where he's performing. He's performing all over Australia and even overseas, wherever you might be.
Yeah, I'll put my Insta on there too if it's okay.
Yeah. We'll put your Instagram. We'll put all of your everything.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next week.